it is Cecilia. In our introduction video, we show asynchronous and synchronous approach to learning. We also show pros and cons on how to effectively design courses using technologies.
Another way which can influence the effectiveness of using technology to enhance learning is to use an instructional design model. One of the well-known instructional design models is ADDIE, ADDIE. ADDIE, developed in the 1970s, stands for Analysis, Design, Development, Implementation, and Evaluation, the 5 stages of a development process. Educators, instructional designers, and training developers find the ADDIE model very useful because each phase is clearly defined and facilitated. We're going to take a look at the various phases involved and also how you can begin using ADDIE today. Before you start developing any content or teaching strategies, you should analyze the current situation in terms of the course aims, knowledge gaps, student characteristics, and required resources, and others. The analysis phase can be considered as the goal-setting stage. The focus in this phase is on the target audience, that is, your students. In this phase, teachers distinguish between what the student already knows and what they should know after completing the course. You should ask yourself by starting with a series of questions to understand the current situation and what are the aims of the course itself. This is not much different from designing a traditional lecture using outcome-based approach. It will really make your life much easier later. Now let's have a look at the analysis stage. There are 4 main considerations that we have to look into. First of all, there's the pedagogical consideration, then there's learners' characteristics, then the instructional strategies, and the learning constraints. We will now look into the pedagogical consideration. Some of the questions are, what are the aims of this online exercise or lecture? Why are we doing it? What are the desired learning outcomes in terms of knowledge, skills, attitude, or behavior? What are the desirable impacts? And things we need to consider in the learner's characteristics considerations. What is the typical background of the students or participants who will undergo the course? For example, their past knowledge levels, experience, ages, interests, cultural background, etc. And looking at the instructional strategies consideration, should your course be online, face-to-face, or blend of both? Would it be synchronous or asynchronous? What are the existing instructional strategies used for this course, and what kind of audience do we have? Are these strategies adequate? What about the learning constraint? What are the constraints that may exist with respect to resources, including technical, support, time, human resources, financial resources? Have you think about who are going to be actually teaching it? Are there tutors? What are the interactive elements that may be used? In general, the analysis phase addresses who, what, when, where, why, and how. And the end goal of this phase will be an analysis of the kind of learning required in the course. With your analysis done, you then get to the design phase. This is where you take all of the learnings of the previous phase and use them to make practical decisions. The design phase deals with learning objectives, assessment instruments, exercise, content, subject matter analysis, lesson planning, and media selection. The design phase should be systematic and specific. Systematic means a logical, orderly method of identifying, developing, and evaluating a set of planned strategies for attaining the course goals. And specific means each element of the instructional design plan needs to be executed with attention to detail. This stage focuses on identifying the learning objectives for the course and how materials will be created and designed. For instance, it may include describing what content areas are to be covered, and finally, a storyboard outlining what will be covered in text, audio, video, and in what order. For the design phase, these steps need to be considered. Number 1. Design and document the course instructional, visual, and technical design strategy. Apply instructional strategies according to the intended learning outcomes. Have you considered student preference and learning style? What about the assessment? And what about the feedback mechanism? How is each class being allocated? Then you have the creative storyboards. And then you have to design the user interface based on the user experience and apply visual design and graphic design. Design and document the course instructional, visual, and technical design strategy. So some of the questions are, what are the different types of media to be used? For example, audio, video, and graphics. Are third-party resources going to be utilized, or will you create your own? Apply instructional strategies according to the intended learning outcomes. Is it collaborative, interactive, or simply informative? And you have to consider the assessment. So, how do you know your students have learned? What kind of evidence do you have? How do you assess student competence? And what kind of feedback mechanism would you use? Just like face-to-face learning, online learning will require prompt feedback. So we know how the students are doing in our lessons. Have you considered student preference and learning styles? What method will you implement to make sure that the course fits their learning styles? How would you design your course activity so as to appeal to diverse learning styles and interest their students? Will you use a variety of delivery options? How is each class being allocated? How much time is to be assigned to each class, and how will learning be implemented? Like, is it per lesson, chapter, module? Do the chapters require linear progression in presentation, that is easy to difficult, or can anyone join at any time? Storyboard is the roadmap of how the course will appear on the paper. So you need to think about, are the activities on the storyboard aligned with the aims of the course? The end goal of this phase will be an overview of the course design and the storyboard. The next phase is the development phase. This phase elaborates and builds on the prior two phases, which is the analysis and the design, into a complete learning environment. The two previous phases requires planning and brainstorming, while in this particular phase is all about putting everything into action. The development phase includes 3 tasks, namely drafting, production, and testing. At this phase, you can begin to create the courses. Your storyboard will guide you step by step. Each element of the course should be developed to match the design phase. The core of the content had already been decided. What you need to add is a level of detail and polish the courses, which is also very important in order to engage the students in an online environment. The end goal of this phase will be the actual product, your online course and activities. The fourth phase of the ADDIE model is implementation. The beginning of implementation marks the first time the target audience interacts with your course. During this stage, the materials created during development are introduced to the target audience and the learning process starts. In order to perform the implementation stage effectively, there are 4 things to consider. 1. Train the trainers. 2. Provide clear expectations. 3. Prepare the environment. And 4. Modify it if necessary. Depending if it is synchronous or asynchronous learning, which should be decided in the analysis phase. Students will have the opportunities to interact with their teachers and tutors in this phase. The end goal of this phase will be your courses are now live and learner can start to learn from your courses. The last phase of the ADDIE method is evaluation. The main goal of the evaluation phase is to determine if the goals have been met within the course and to establish what will be required to move forward in order to improve for the enhancement of student learning. Feedback and data is collected in order to identify areas that require improvement, and these fit into the design, the development, and implementation of the next iteration of the course. The questions that we need to consider in the evaluation phase are: did we meet the learning goals as set out in the analysis phase? Are there any extra training required for the tutors? Do we need to change the media approach or the tool used? If we haven't satisfied those, we need to go back to the drawing board. If you want to find more information about technology enhanced learning at HKU, you can go directly to this link here. You can also find many resources in our CETL website, such as assessment, experiential learning, community practice, and so forth.
Hi, it's me, Cecilia. In our introduction video, we show asynchronous and synchronous videos. We show